What's going on, everyone? As soon as I posted my video yesterday, well, I said we're gonna be back to regular uploads, but we got a huge drop of Spotlight deck cards. We have over 20 cards, including the 4 new aspect rare bases that we got to talk about today. Huge drop. New heroism Vader potential, some insane heroism ramp, and a bunch of other cards. I am very excited. Probably go a little bit quicker because we got so many cards to talk about. Lots of fun ones as well. A big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. And we're going to dive straight in to the new rare bases, starting us off with the Cunning one. Honestly, I think this is the weakest of the 4. 25 HP. All 4 of them have 25 HP. That's a big downside, by the way. 25 HP Cunning base, Tomb of Elram from the Jedi Fallen Order in Zepho. Action, exhaust a friendly unit, the Force is with you. So you can do this any amount of times per turn. You basically use an action, exhaust one of your units that is readied, and then you get to create a Force token. That's pretty much it. This does not look all that powerful. Of course, you could potentially generate multiple Force tokens in a turn as long as you have multiple units, but there's not really a huge likelihood that you'll have multiple units if you're using this ability because you are not actually attacking. The other portion of it is your Cunning, and Cunning tends to lean a little bit more disruptive / aggressive. You can a little bit use more controlling elements, but you need to have units to make this work, and if you're playing units, that means that you're going to be a little bit more aggressive or at least have units to control the board. But you're not attacking with them because you're using the action to exhaust your units. And then on top of the whole thing, 25 HP base, this really is a big downside if you're using this more grindy mid-range strategy of playing units to exhaust them to generate Force tokens to then get value from those Force tokens. It's interesting, but I don't think it's very strong. Next up, we've got Temple of Destruction. Now, this one I think has a lot of potential. 25 HP aggression base. When a friendly unit deals 3 or more combat damage to an enemy base, you get to generate a Force token. My favorite of the 4 arts, by the way, for these bases, we got Malachor. Absolutely sweet. Reminds me of the Vader Ahsoka fight. One of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. But this base is exactly on theme for what you want to do. It's an aggressive base. It's 25 HP. When you have a 25 HP base, generally speaking, you either need to be A, very controlling or use the base to help you maintain board control, or B, be very aggressive. If you look at the other 25 HP bases that actually allow for this to function, Tarkin Town and ECL, those are the 2 that really are the only ones that are playable. And with Tarkin Town, you get to maintain control of the board, right? Take out early units, maybe dominate the early game and push in damage, or even push in damage for the controlling decks. ECL allows you to immediately get impact from one of your bigger plays, pushing in more damage, or just, well, maintaining board control, right? Even if you are a more slower deck, you can use ECL to kill a unit or trade off with a unit, which is really important. Temple of Destruction does not do the latter, where it cannot really help you maintain board presence because you have to ignore units to get the Force back. You have to be hitting an enemy base. However, the decks that really are good at hitting bases are the very aggressive curve out decks. And if we have cards that support this strategy of having them attack into the base over and over and over again, and then you're able to get the Force token and you're able to go ahead and generate some value, maybe get in more damage, this could be a base that I would consider. But you do need to get a lot of value from these Force tokens. Not just playing bad units that generate Force tokens or units that are kind of average that get better with the Force. You need to be playing units that are so massively powerful when you have the Force that it's actually worth running Temple of Destruction, because again, you're competing directly with Tarkin Town, and Tarkin Town's a really tough base to compete with, along with ECL. Those are the 2 big ones, right? This has potential, but I don't think has enough support yet to where I'm actually really excited about Temple of Destruction at the very moment. Next up, we've got Mystic Monastery. This is the other one that I'm actually pretty excited about. Both the aggression and command ones, in my opinion, are the stronger of the 4. We have a 25 HP base in command. The Force is with you. That's the action. You just get a Force token, but you can only use it 3 times each game. So only 3 times in a single game can you use this ability. It's pretty interesting because you can actually use this multiple times in a single turn. You can play a unit or attack with a unit or whatever, consume a Force token, get another Force token. use it, get another force token, use it, get another force token. The thing that I'm really excited about with Monastery here is you can get the payoff without playing the support. By having an action to just generate the force whenever you want, you are able to get the payoff of certain units and abilities that otherwise you'd have to play other cards to support your effect of generating force token. Now, of course, if you're playing a force deck, you could play a 20 HP base and attack with force units or whatever, and you could probably generate more force that way, and you don't have to sacrifice 3 additional HP. This is for a style of deck that wants to play some sort of style outside of the force category, but wants to take advantage of those really powerful force units. And when I say force units, I mean units that are going to be using the force token without actually having to have support for that force token. The base is the support. The problem with that is that you need to have so much value that it's going to outpace either ECL, which is ambush, or Data Vault, which is 8 extra HP. I don't know if Mystic Monastery can get there. We will have to see if there's a card that benefits you from getting the force token that much. And for our last base, we have Virgin's Temple, another 25 HP base. When the regroup phase starts, if you control a unit with 4 or more remaining HP, you get a force token. This one is not that bad at all. The effect is quite strong. The ability to generate a force token can happen as soon as turn 2 happens, right? Turn 1, you play an R2D2. You got a 4 toughness unit. Turn 2, boom, you get the force token. It's not realistically unlikely to have a 4 toughness unit every turn of the game if you're playing units. Here's the bigger issue that I see with the Virgin's Temple. The other two that I like a little bit more are bases that can typically more index towards aggressive strategies. Aggression, literally, you attack base and you can generate a ton of force. And by the way, aggression isn't limited for once per turn. You can just keep generating a bunch of force tokens. Command, you can generate a ton of force without actually having the force synergy payoff or setup, and you can index that towards more aggressive strategies. You play earlier units, you get the aggressive units that pay off because you have the force, and you can just generate the force whenever you need it. These types of strategies get less affected by the 25 HP. If you look at Target Town and ECL, most of the time the decks that are playing those cards are going to be either controlling the early game and not have the ability to, or other decks don't have the ability to overrun them and just kill them, or they're going to have a more aggressive strategy where they're just going to push the opponents out. They're not even going to control the early game. They're just going to kill them straight out. And the command and aggressive bases tend to lean towards that direction. Virgin's Temple is a long game strategy, right? Every turn, I'm going to play a unit, get a little bit of force here, maybe get a little value for my force token the next turn, etc., etc., etc. Is that going to be more worthwhile than just playing a higher HP base? I don't know. Yes, you can technically play an aggressive strategy with this, where you're playing Virgin's Temple, you just play good statted units, and you get the 4 or more remaining HP, and you get the force token every turn, you're able to pay off for that. Great, you could potentially do that. But Vigilance tends not to lean towards the more aggressive strategies. So that's something to put it down a little bit. But more importantly, the 4 toughness unit is actually a lot harder to obtain if you're going for that more aggressive strategy. So all of that considered, I think Virgin's Temple definitely has some interesting aspects to it, but is, at least at first glance, the third on my list. Aggression and command are up there, and then you have vigilance, and then you have cunning. I don't think cunning is very strong. Of course, none of this matters unless we actually see the cards that pay you off for having force tokens, right? We've seen a little bit of them, and there's some cards that are reasonable or decent, but I haven't seen a card that's like, okay, I get Battlefield Marine, but if I have the force, it's a Battlefield Marine with an experience token. I get a 4/4 for 2 resources instead of a 3/3. Those are the types of cards that I'm looking for. Cards that just innately pay you off for having the force token. And it doesn't have to be a massive payoff. Again, Battlefield Marine, already a card that people play because it's good stats, right? And that's like a mild example. We could see something like Luke Skywalker, where you've got Luke Skywalker, but if you have the force, you get, instead of -3/-3 baseline and then -6/-6, you get -4/-4 and then -8/-8, which could be interesting. Something like that where it really ramps up. It's already a good card, but then it really ramps up with force tokens. That's the type of stuff I'm really curious if we're going to get. On to the next one. We got some Ewoks, guys. A village tender, 1-cost ground unit in command, 1/3 Ewok, hidden, restore 1. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's incredible. It's a 1/3. It's got restore 1. Yes, it's going to start healing you immediately, but it's a 1/3. Yes, it doesn't die immediately, but it's a 1/3. I don't know how many times I have to say that. I just don't see this being all that fantastic. The only thing that I am kind of interested in is Rey. Rey, you can turn it into a 2/4, I suppose. But is this better than like Clone Deserter or something like that, which also has restore 1, and that turns into a 3/4? I'm not quite there. I'm not quite there with Village Tender, but maybe someone else is. Just a common though, so nothing too much to talk about there. Directed by the Force, this is a 1-cost event in command. You get the Force, and you may play a unit from your hand. So basically, you get to generate the Force, and then if the unit you're playing has some sort of value with the Force token, you'll have that Force token when they come in, and you can do it in one action, right? You don't have to pay 1 to get the Force and then pay whatever to play the unit, and it's not 2 different actions. So that's kind of nice. I don't think it's strong at all. The Force seems to be something that you'll want to build your whole deck around. And if you are, ideally, the base and other cards in your deck are going to have the ability to support that strategy. Maybe Directed by the Force is good to the point where there's some cards that are so paid off by having the Force that you want to play Directed by the Force. Remember, this is an additional cost that you're paying for a unit and an additional card that you're paying for a unit. Is that worth it? I'd have to say probably not in most cases. Next up, we got Shira Imwe. Side note, someone in my Patreon Discord was like, dude, why is this in the Maul deck? And I'm like, totally there with them. Why do we have this in the Maul deck? I know. They're Spotlight decks. They're supposed to be better, supposed to be more synergistic. But my immersion, guys, why is Shira in the Maul deck? Anyways, 4-cost ground unit in Vigilance, 3/5 Sentinel, Force Fringe. When it's attacked, you may use the Force. If you do, the attacker gets -2/-0. Pretty straightforward, kind of mediocre to me. Yes, 4-cost, 3/5 Sentinel. It can do some work. Sentinels are kind of obnoxious no matter what you do. It's just an obnoxious. If I compare this to Chilton, which is like the best Vigilance Sentinel for the most part, Chilton's going to be a 5/5 or a 6/6. I think I'd prefer Chilton if you're going to go this direction with Sentinels. This guy, the payoff just isn't there really. When your opponents are attacking to cheer it, they're not going to die because the 3 power is not quite enough to get there. If this guy was like a reverse stat, it was a 5/3, I might actually be a little bit more interested in him, because what would happen is, let's say your opponent attacks with a 4-powered unit, well, suddenly Chirrut doesn't die and probably kills their unit if you use the Force. So it would trade off with multiple units for using the Force. The way this works is, yes, he's got high toughness, and yes, you might be able to tank a couple of hits, but he's coming down on turn 4, which means that's like turn 5 ECL territory, right? With like Poe Dameron. And even if you use the Force, he's still going to die. There's a lot of situations like that where people can ECL something, or use a combination of an attack plus Tarkin Town to finish it off, which is going to be pretty bad, and your Chirrut's not going to kill anything, or you're just going to attack with a couple of different units and then finish it off that way. And that's assuming you have the Force, and it's not just a 3/5, right? Seems okay, but kind of on the mediocre side of things. Next up, we've got Paladin Training Corvette, 5-cost space unit in command, heroism, 3/5 Jedi vehicle, Republic capital ship. When played, you may give an experience token to each of up to 3 Force units. This looks interesting, but I don't think it's very strong. What I do like about it is it comes down on a nice part of the curve. 5 resources are pretty good because there's going to be a good chance you're going to deploy your leader, have another Force unit, and then get this to get 2 experience tokens, right? That seems pretty realistic. But I've been very disappointed with like General Tog in the past. I do think this is better than General Tog just because you have a lot of Force options now. And as I said, it comes down on a turn where you'll probably have a couple more units to actually give the experience tokens to. If you're able to give an experience token to itself alongside the other 2 units, I would be so much more excited about this. 5 cost, 3/5. It's not bad in space. It's not a great stat line by any means, but it's not bad when you're getting this value. But you do need to get a lot of value, and you do need to have a lot of units on the board. And that's the trickiest part, is that when you don't have units on the board, this thing is a brick. It is horrible. So, on this one. Sith Holocron, upgrade, not super impressed with this one either. Aggression, villainy, attached to a Force unit. Attached unit gains on attack, you may deal 2 damage to a friendly unit. If you do, this unit gets +2/+0 for this attack, and you got +1/+1 as a baseline. So 1-cost event, or upgrade rather, gets +1/+1. Not that great. I'm looking for 3 or maybe even 4 points of stats for my 1-cost upgrades. On another note, are you going to get value on this on attack trigger? If you get the value from the on attack trigger, you kind of get a surprise strike for 1 resource, which isn't that bad. Of course, you don't get to immediately attack with it, which is the strength of surprise strike rather than an upgrade. Okay, so even if you do get an attack with it, it's still not nearly to the point of surprise strike. And you have to deal 2 damage to a friendly unit. So you need a deck where maybe the damage is benefiting you, to where I really would be even close to considering Sith Holocron, because the restrictions are there. The baseline's not that great, and then you do have to get some value. You can put this damage on yourself, right? If you may deal 2 damage to a friendly unit, so that's kind of nice. But in general, I don't think this is all that strong. I do think it's cool to see Ezra in the art though with the Sith Holocron. That was pretty sweet. Next up, we've got Infused Brawler. This is probably one of my favorite design cards so far. 2-cost ground unit in aggression, 2/2 Force Knight. When played, you may use the Force. If you do, give 2 experience tokens to this unit. When it completes an attack, you defeat an experience token on it. So the idea is you play a really overstated unit, maybe get some value from it early on, and then it goes away. But the payoff there is pretty big to have the Force. So I do like this effect of having this immediate value, but then a little bit of paying the cost in the long run, right? I think that's really, really cool. I think the design of this card is really awesome. I don't think it's that powerful. And the biggest reason why is the cost. It's unlikely to have the Force on turn 1. And you kind of want to play this guy on turn 1. Otherwise, the value of him goes down significantly, right? Suddenly have a 4/4 on turn 3 or 4 isn't as impressive as a 4/4 on turn 1. That's the key. So, because you're not going to have the Force very likely on turn 1, I don't think Infused Brawler is all that powerful. Next up, we've got Type Nubian Starship, 3-cost space unit in Cunning Heroism. I do not like this card at all. It's a 2/4. It's when played, draw a card. When defeated, discard a card from your hand. Honestly, if this was 3-cost 2/4, when played, draw a card, I don't even think I would still play it. It's just competing with too many things. And I don't think it's all that strong. The when defeated trigger isn't that big of a downside, but overall, it's just a 3-cost 2/4. In Cunning Heroism, that's not typically what you want to be doing. The only thing that I would consider with this is with the new Qui Gon and like trying to bounce things to your hand and do some things like that. Maybe you get some value out of the when played over and over again, and then you can draw a bunch of cards, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Type. Qui Gons Lightsaber is next up, 2-cost upgrade in Cunning Heroism. I think the lightsabers so far have been pretty bad, but we'll see with Qui Gon's here. Attached to a friendly non-vehicle unit. When played, if it's Qui Gon, you get to go out and exhaust any number of units with combined cost 6 or less, and you get +3/+1. First off, stat line, +3/+1. It's reasonable. I don't hate it. It's really about this when played ability to me. I think this is actually quite a strong one. And if you do get on Qui-Gon, you are able to go out and get some pretty big value because you're likely to exhaust multiple units or just one big unit. But the same problem occurs. If you're not putting on Qui-Gon, it's atrocious. It is atrocious. Yes, it's an upgrade, but the low toughness on it means that the upgrade's even less valuable on other units. Leaders tend to have high toughness, so the high power to low toughness ratio of the upgrades isn't too big of a deal. And it's intended to go on like your Qui-Gon leader, of course. But any other units are really going to hate this. I don't think this is very good at all. I don't think it's very playable. But hey, it's Qui Gons Lightsaber, so maybe you can build a deck with all lightsabers. Next up, we've got Impossible Escape. I think this one's actually interesting. It's not like insane, but I think it's interesting. 1-cost event in Cunning. You may either exhaust a friendly unit or use the Force. If you do either, exhaust an enemy unit and draw a card. So first off, if we get that event leader, I think this is one of those cards where I think we could see a little bit of more value from. On a baseline, I get to do a little bit with my Force and get an exhaust and replace the card. This type of trickery could be pretty good. We've seen how powerful Bamboozle has been. Now, Bamboozle is a lot different. It's free in a lot of situations, and it knocks upgrades back to their hand. This one does neither, but it's very cheap and does replace itself, which I do like. So we will see how powerful this is. I could see this popping up as like a 1-of or 2-of in certain circumstances. Exhausting an enemy unit is a powerful effect, and maybe it's worthwhile to play just for that alone. On to the next one, we've got Will of the Force. This is a 4-cost event in Cunning. It actually looks pretty good. Return on leader unit to its owner's hand. You may use the Force. If you do, that player discards a card at random from their hand. So it's a waylay, but for 1 extra cost. And if you're able to use the Force, you get to get a card from their hand. Of course, if you don't use the Force, it is a strictly worse Waylay, unless the Force trait matters for some reason. For the most part, it's a strictly worse Waylay. If you're able to use the Force, honestly, I like this card quite a bit. There are a lot of times where you'll play Waylay on the 4 resource turn or the 5 resource turn just because it's such a good play. And you're left with 1 or 2 resources left over. This extra resource doesn't actually affect the nature of the game all that much, but the extra card at random might. So if you're playing a deck that already is using the Force and a deck that is already playing Waylay, which if you're playing Cunning, you probably already are, then I think Will of the Force seemingly is a pretty good option. So I don't think it's that bad at all. Next up, we've got Thralls of the Coven. This one's interesting. It's a 5-cost ground unit in Aggression Villainy, 3/7 Knight, Raid 3. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I don't know if it's that strong. Of course, we have Plo Koon, and he's got, he's a 3/6 with Raid 3. Of course, the Raid 3 only pops in with your Coordinate, but the real power of Plo Koon is that you get immediate impact on the board. This guy does not, and I think that's really what's breaking him down. Now, 6/7 on attacks is impressive for 5 resources. That's an impressive stat line. But there's also the downside of you do not trade very well at this stage of the game. If you're a very aggressive deck, I could see some value. The other thing I could see some value for, Grand Inquisitor. Grand Inquisitor, baby. 3-powered unit, Raid 3, get in some damage. Let's go, okay? That's about it. Next up, we've got Witch of the Mist. 1-cost Force Night Sister aggression unit, 1/3 hidden. Pretty much it. Don't think this card's very good. It's a 1-cost 1/3, which you do not like at all. A hidden is not going to matter on turn 1 for the most part. Maybe if you're going super wide, or if you really need a Force unit or a Night Sister unit, or a Night unit. I shouldn't say Night Sister, but I just think of them all as Night Sisters, right? But if you play a Night unit, maybe that matters to you. Maybe Witch of the Mist is good enough. So far, we don't have enough Night units to where I think that's convincing, but we'll see in the future. Next up, we got Deva of Balaba. Pretty interesting 6-cost ground unit in Cunning Heroism, 5/7 Force Jedi Republic, Ambush Saboteur. Pretty straightforward, pretty interesting. I think that's really cool to see that you could have like a 5/6/7 ambush turn in Cunning Heroism. Like that is pretty exciting, and Plo Koon is pretty good already. So that is something that works in Deva of Balaba's favor. But it is a 6-cost 5/7 with Ambush. Saboteur is nice, you can get through the shield tokens, but I don't think this is actually going to kill all that many things when it comes down. And usually the game is probably over at that point. I think there is some potential here. I think Saboteur is nice. I think Ambush is ridiculously good. So that's all great stuff. Same stats as Darth Vader, and we've seen Darth Vader do some work. But the bigger thing with Darth Vader is that usually Darth Vader is the more defensive deck or the value-oriented deck, to where when Vader comes down, you're picking off smaller units, and then you get a board state from it. Deva of Balaba, the deck that it's going to be fitting in is the more aggressive deck, and you're probably not going to be finishing off units, and you don't get a board from it. So not something that I am like, oh my gosh, it's insane, but I think could have some potential. This card, on the other hand, Macanata, looks really good. 3-cost ground unit in Command, 3/4. It's got the Underworld trait, but it says when played, you may attack with a Force unit. It gets +2/+0 for this attack. So we've got Fleet Lieutenant for Force units. If we compare 1-to-1, because Fleet Lieutenant is one of the best Rebel cards in the entire game, it is exceptional, goes in so many different Rebel decks, super aggressive, super amazing. This Macanata does very similar in terms of the when played, but has 1 extra toughness, which is actually a big deal because there's a lot of 3/5s out there. This thing survives it. The biggest downside, however, is that Fleet Lieutenant has the same traits as the deck that it's trying to play in. Macanata is going to be like an outsider in that deck, right? It's an Underworld card, and you're going to play a bunch of Force units, and you just have this random Underworld card. So that's a big downside. It also is unique, which I think is a downside in most cases in this situation. So do I think it's as good as Fleet Lieutenant? No. But do I think it's really good? Yes. I do think it could fit in the Force decks, pretty substantially powerful. And there's not a lot of scenarios where having a Rebel Fleet Lieutenant matters exceptionally a lot. It is nice, and it does matter in some situations, but so will the 4th point of toughness. So I think Macanata is going to be a pretty big staple if there's any Force aggro decks, which makes a lot of sense. Next up, we've got Kylo Ren, 2-cost ground unit in Villainy. It's a 2/3 Force first order with Overwhelm. Pretty sweet in Revan. You know, getting Overwhelm on a bigger powered unit and punching through is also just Villainy. Could work there. When you play an upgrade on this unit, you may use the Force. If you do, draw a card. Now, speaking of Revan, it does not count for this ability because you're not playing an upgrade. You're just getting an experience token. Two different things. I don't think the secondary effect is all that important. Really, it's just a 2-cost ground unit that has the Force tag. I think that's really what Kylo Ren's going to be offering. It also has the first order tag, which could matter for Phasma, but I don't think this card is all that powerful. I think it's more of a curve filler if you're looking for Force strategies. Next up, we've got one of the most hated units in the entire game in Pong Krell. Here's our Villainy Jedi, guys. 7-cost ground unit in Vigilance Villainy, 2/9 grit. When this unit completes an attack, you may defeat a unit with less remaining HP than this unit's power. So basically, whatever you attack is then going to die. Because you attack, let's say, a Poe Dameron. Just a Poe Dameron. You attack, Pong Krell gets hit for 6. It's an 8-powered unit. Poe Dameron's at 4 toughness. You kill it. Let's say you attack, I don't know, Bosk, like the leader. Well, Pong Krell gets hit for 4, becomes a 6-powered unit, and you finish off Bosk, which is a 4 toughness unit. So you basically can finish off anything in single combat. The problem is it's a 7 resource unit that does nothing when it comes down, and you can't seal it out. So I don't think this card's very good, and he shouldn't because it's Pong Krell, even though the art's sweet, because it reminds me of my favorite arc in the Clone Wars. But, you know, that's okay. Pong Krell can go into the trash can, eh? And lastly, I think this is lastly, we've got Keller Beck. And this guy looks amazing, honestly, like actually amazing. This is like the new Heroism Vader. The new Heroism Vader. We've got 7-cost ground unit. Actually, I don't think this is the last one. I take it back. I don't think this is the last card. I take it back. 7-cost ground unit. Command Heroism, 7/7, Force, Jedi, Republic. When played, search the top 7 cards of your deck for a unit, reveal it, and play it. It costs 3 less. This is an uncommon, guys. And this is Keller Beck. It's disgustingly good. Okay? 7-cost ground unit, you get a 7/7. Okay, good stats. I'm not complaining about that. 7/7/7, not bad. When you play it, boom, you just search the top cards and you can pick any unit. It's not limited by Villainy or Heroism. Any unit, play it as long as it's 3 or less for free. Okay? But if it costs more and you have more resources, you can play a 4-drop, 5-drop, kind of like a Home 1, very similar to Home 1, in fact. This looks exceptional. I view this as like on par and potentially even better than Ewing reinforcements in some decks, right? You get a massive unit and then you get a 3-drop. If you think about what you could get with Ewing reinforcements, you could get 7 cost worth of stats and effects. For this, you get potentially 10 costs, right? Because you get Keller Beck. Now, I don't think that's necessarily true because Keller Beck is probably a little bit under the rate in terms of what other 7-drops you could get. But, I mean, if you compare it directly to Vader, Vader's a 5/7. And you could only search up Villainy cards, and you can't choose any unit. It has to be a 3 or less cost. But Vader allows you to choose multiple lower cost units, which doesn't really come into play an insane amount. Some of the new Vader decks do actually take advantage of it, however. And the bigger thing is he gets Ambush. I do think Ambush is still better, and I think Vader is still better than Keller Beck. But this guy's got a chance, okay? And I definitely recommend you try him out. He looks absolutely sweet. Next up, we got Luminous Beings. I thought there was some more cards. I lied to you all before. 6-cost event in Command Heroism. Put up to 3 Force units from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in a random order. Give that many units +4/+4 for this phase. This looks hot garbage. 6 costs. You're gonna have Force units. You put them from your discard to the bottom. Great. You get +4/+4 for 3 different units. Are you gonna have 3 different units? Okay, if you do, are you gonna be able to attack with them on this turn? Are you gonna end the game this turn? What's going on? What's going on here? +4/+4, not that powerful. You could consider it similar to Unity of Purpose. And when you compare it that way, you know, +12/+12 at a single turn is a lot. And you might be able to end the game, but are you gonna have 3 units on that board? And if you are, and you're able to have 3 units on the board by 6 resources, is it not better just to index towards unity of purpose? Maybe, but maybe you can't because it's double commands. So this is a backup. But then if you're doing that, you're going to have force units. Like you have to play a force deck. No, this looks too complicated. And the effect doesn't even look that great. So I don't like this card at all. Next up, we got Youngling Padawan. 2-cost ground unit in Cunning. Heroism, 2/3 Force Jedi. When played, the Force is with you. Straightforward, looks good. I think this is a strong card if you're looking for the decks that are looking for the Force. Pretty straightforward. I don't think this is all that complicated, guys. If there are Force payoffs, I think Youngling Padawan has a good chance of being a good card. You can curve straight into something that has a Force payoff on turn 2, and that looks pretty good. 2/3, not a great stat line. Not excited about that, but does have the Force tag, does have the Jedi tag. And as I said, if you're getting value from the Force, well, suddenly Youngling Padawan, probably something that you're going to want to go with. Next up, we've got Ogdo. Sweet card, by the way. Absolutely nuts in Han 2. 3-cost ground unit in Vigilance, 5/5 creature. This unit can't attack unless it's damaged. When this unit attacks and defeats a unit, heal 2 damage from this unit. Guys, this is a turn 1 5/3 in Han 2. Turn 1 5/3 in Han 2. That's nasty. That's insane. That is awesome. That is honestly awesome. I think there's some cool things you can do with this. Obviously, like I think of Asajj Ventress from set 4, where you can deal damage to this and deal damage to something else and get some value there. Han 2, that's the real big kicker. I don't really know what you could be doing. Like, obviously, you're going to need a deck that is able to damage your own units. But if you're playing Han 2 and you're able to kill something with Ogdo, it's probably going to get out of range to where you can attack with it. But maybe you can just play in a hyper-aggressive Han Blue deck and then just start smacking phase with a 5/3 on turn 1. That is incredible. I think there's something there. I think there might be something there. I think it's really cool. I don't think it's like insane, but I think there's some really powerful synergies that might be something that you want to take advantage of. Next up, we got Strike Ship, 2-cost space unit in Aggression, Villainy, 0/3 Underworld Vehicle Fighter. Nihil. Really interesting with that one. Raid 3 and Overwhelm. So, Raid 3, 0/3. Very aggressive. Very bad on defense. Very bad on defense. But, maybe worthwhile if you're a hyper aggressive deck and you can dominate the space arena. Problem I have is like, we have Blue Leader. Blue Leader destroys this card. Like, kills it, lives, doesn't take any damage. You do nothing with Strike Ship. It's a tragedy. I think that's really scary in the format with Blue Leader. Next up, we've got Acolyte of the Beyond. This one is really quite interesting because we have a 2-cost ground unit in Aggression, Villainy, 2/3. On attack and when defeated, the Force is with you. Very similar to the Youngling Padawan, where if you have a deck that wants the Force, this could be very, very good. The problem I see with this one, why I think Youngling Padawan might be a little bit better, is this thing needs to attack. And if you're playing a deck that wants the Force, you might be playing a 20 HP base and 28 HP base, and that one already generates the Force on attacks. So maybe you just rather play a Force unit that gives you that instead of playing just a Sith unit. But maybe there's not going to be enough of them. I don't know. This card does look interesting if there's Force payoffs. I just haven't seen that many cards that pay you off for having the Force yet. That's what we're really missing. So far, we've seen all the Force setups, but very few of the Force payoffs. We saw one yesterday or the other day with the Night Sister. I think that one is a really good payoff. So there might be a few coming, but I need to see more before I can determine whether or not I like these types of cards. And that's pretty much it, guys. I think there was one more. Here we go. Eth Koth. Can't forget about this guy. 4-cost ground unit, command heroism, 5/4, Force Jedi Republic. When defeated, you may use the Force. If you do, put this card into play as a resource. Talk about Force payoffs. This is the best one yet. Guys, this is like a better Super Laser Technician in some situations. And Super Laser Technician is absurdly good. Okay. 4-cost ground unit, 5/4. Great stat line. It's going to trade with basically anything or even kill something and live. If you get the Force, you then get a Super Laser Technician effect, which you can just get a resource. It seems good. There's not much to talk about here in terms of what it's doing because it's very straightforward. If you're generating the Force, playing this guy on curve generates you a lot of value. You get to trade off, get some value on the board, deploy to the board, and then get to your big payoffs sooner. definitely like a highlight mid-range card. Very, very strong. And in the case of like Super Laser Technician versus this, Super Laser Technician is cheaper, which is nice. But the stat line isn't quite enough to actually trade off with anything, which I think is a big downside in Super Laser Technician's view. However, the resource gets readied and it's more likely to die and be guaranteed resource, whereas this one, you'll have to have the Force. So that is something to consider. But I do think ETH Koth has a lot of potential here. And that is going to be the last one. That is the last card for today. My goodness, guys, that was a lot of spoilers. So many new cards, a bunch of rare bases. We've got Ewoks, we've got events, we've got Force units, we got upgrades, we got space units, we got Night Sisters, we've got a bunch of random stuff that I don't even remember, guys. It's incredible. Let me know what your favorite card here of the pool was. Let me know what your favorite rare base is and what has the most potential. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next one.